Lake Bunyonyi, with its 29 emerald green islands framed by terraced hillsides to the south of the country, is a scenically refreshing location for nature walks, bird watching and canoeing. Nestled between the scenic sprawling Chigezi Highlands between Kabale and Chisoro districts, Bunyonyi is the deepest lake in the country. With the enormous tourism potential here, the population has exploded, and so is the price of land in the vicinity. This island, Munanira, in Bufukasel, is one of the 29 necklaces sitting on the lake. On the evening of 17th July, a group of 10 men armed with pangas descended on a gated private property and started cutting trees and removing fences. The property belongs to Lydia Murungi, next to the property of a lawyer.
Then I saw a group jumping over the fence, the other side of the cottage. They never asked me anything. For them, they started breaking the fence, destroying the fence. When I asked them, one of them called Simon told me that I should ask the owner of the land.
Murungi's property caretaker said the attack was unprovoked. Another testament of impunity by people with power, real or perceived.
After destroying this side, then they went the other side. Now before going, they came there and threatened me that if I dare to touch anything that they have destroyed, they will eliminate my life.
They reported the matter to police, which later led to the arrest of the suspects, who were later granted bond.
They came with Davis, the owner, whom they claim is the owner, but for me, I don't know him. That was my first time to see him.
There are only 2 neighbors on this expansive island, so the borders should be fairly easy to define. The disruption of their harmony continues to place pockets of the country into a tinderbox. With a breakdown of institutions from the central to local government level and the grassroots, each community has its own set of rules to govern land, leading to a breakdown in order. Throw in the mix a cocktail of issues, a population explosion, the breakdown in institutions from central to local government, massive corruption, impunity, and the population explosion exerting pressure on finite resources, including land. From central to east to north to west, there is land wrangle or grabbing. In worst-case scenarios, people have been killed or maimed, a fodder for daily news.
The intention of the government, let me say of the Ugandans, is that every Ugandan should have Every Ugandan should have land in perpetuity. Where we stand now, the president has come out very clearly. We have to pass this law, implement a constitutional provision so that Bibanja holders get the title over the land they occupy. That's where we are, sir.
There is no need for land reforms. What needs to be done is to handle about 6 key areas. The first is the land office, because people with money find it easy to get certificates of title, even over and above other titles. You know, somebody who wants to do a search in the land office may fail. Somebody who wants to carry out a transaction in the land office may fail. That's where the first problem is. The second problem is in the police land unit. They simply don't have the capacity to investigate any land-related crime. And because they can't carry out any land-related crime, they cannot compile files for presentation to the courts for prosecution against the culprits. The third problem is with the courts themselves. A land case can last 5 to 10, 12 years in the courts.
On Wednesday, towards the crack of dawn, police officers under the cover of the Velvet Duck raided the homes of 70-year-old William Chibuka and 47-year-old Mariam Naiga in Senene village, Butambala district.
They say, as Bibanja holders, we don't have right over the land.
Our father left us the land. which he also inherited from our great-grandfather. Our father's sister, who is our aunt, working with some of her educated children, decided to take over all the land.
The duo are embroiled in a land dispute with a group of relatives over ancestral land measuring more than 14 acres. The dispute over sharing first flared during the compensation for the right-of-way to allow construction of the 135 Mpigi Kabula-Soke Maddu Sembabule Road between 2014 and 2017. The duo is accused by their paternal aunt, whom we identified by only one name as Nambi, aged 80 years, of criminal trespass. The relatives accused Nambi and her children of conniving with the resident district commissioner, Sulaiman Lubwama, to grab all the land.
A group of police officers came here at about 2 a.m. They banged our door screaming, "Open up." When he insisted on not opening up until they properly introduced themselves, they instead broke the door and took him away as they beat him up.
They started pushing us during the first COVID-19 lockdown. One day, they came here and rounded us up and took us to the RDC's offices, where we were forced to sign documents that we did not understand. They told us that Bibanja holders don't have absolute right over land.
However, the RDC denied taking sides in the conflict.
I think it was last year. There was issue between the tenants and the landlord. The landlord is called Sarah, and I brought these people on the round table and I thought they had settled their issues. I'm actually surprised. I don't know about the current situation, but I'm also surprised to hear that again this issue is coming up.
Naiga and Chibuka remained in jail without being told of their crimes. Upon seeing us, the OCCID turned the guns on the victims' relatives, accusing them of inflaming the matter by inviting, I quote, people from Kampala. We left the area when release orders were being processed amidst finger-pointing. Land disputes cut across the country. In the central region, Uganda has for almost 3 decades been at loggerheads with the central government over land reforms, which the former says are the long-awaited antidote. President Museveni, while meeting the MPs elect in April 2021 at Chankwanzi, upheld that one of the things he aims to achieve during his 6th term in office is to see an overhaul of land laws to empower poor communities who are victims of eviction.
This time, you must help us to do what we have wanted to do for a long time, but which has been stuck here and there because of the vested interests. The issue of land evictions in Uganda. The issue of land evictions in Uganda.
Now the State Minister for Lands, Sam Mayanja, whose dyed-in-the-wool conservative views on Buganda rhyme with those of the president, told NTV that the reforms have to pass this time round.
The thing will be everybody. That's why it said legal or bona fide occupants. That's the English word used. When I'm here in Uganda, I translate it as a Bibanja holder. When I'm in the lost countries, the Bugangais, Buyaga, and whatever districts make out, some part of them we call them Bafuruki. In other areas we call them Abasenze or Abasenze. Other parts of Uganda, they have a different local name. But apart from Uganda and the lost counties, everyone else is a Bibanja holder. Those hacking themselves, it is a different issue. It is not that somebody has come with a title and said, you people who are here, how did you come here? I'm the owner. No, they are fighting among themselves, among their customary owning. So it's a localized area. When you go to Madi, it's a different thing. The local chief ought to have absolute ownership, control of the land. Some just at the same way as they used to be here. Not by way of evicting, but by way of power and entering into their disputes. And we say these people have always been there. So the struggles there are different. But again, also the Constitution has said they can also get a title. From what I know, they have started with certificates of occupancy, of certificates, so customary certificates, but they have a right to a title. I think the issue is how do you give them a title? Because you can't give a title to an individual. It must be in accordance with the custom of the area. So if this land is by our family, that title should reflect that as a customary title. And I think, in my view, that could stop the fighting. So that when they come to get their title, they come as the family who occupies this area.
He said the reforms seek to both correct the colonial injustices and rein in on the Baganda elite exploiting the ignorant masses with the Mailo land tenure system.
What are the driving force behind the land question in Uganda? And we call it a land question because it is a headache, and it has caused a lot of problem in the body politic. But number one, it is a history. The historical injustice brought in by the 1900 agreement. Number two, the lack of progress in the Chiganda society. Now you can call it Uganda society, by creating a group of lazy people. I don't know whether it was a deliberate policy. This giving Bibanja, like their fathers. Now, and what they were doing now, to be lazy, to drink, collect rent, and sell. And they're still selling and evicting. So number two, that is, they distorted our society. Number three, they brought weak laws.
The Mailo land tenure system is where the landowner has the perpetual interest on land and whose title is impeachable under the Torrens land system, while Bibanja holders have an equitable interest on land and can easily be evicted on the failure to pay ground rent. The government, however, insists the Mailo land system in its current state is partly to blame for the cocktail of land wrangles in Buganda, Toro, Bunyoro and Ankole sub-regions, where it was introduced by the British colonial administration in the respective agreements. Countless times, authorities including RDCs and police have been accused of fueling land wrangles across the country after taking sides or bribes. The judiciary too has been accused of abetting and aiding land wrangles. On February 28, 2022, President Museveni issued a directive prohibiting any eviction, even if it is sanctioned by court without the, I quote, consent and directive observation of the District Security Committee chaired by the RDCs, who must consult with the Minister of Lands, I end quotes. Mayanja says the spirit of the proposed land reforms is to erase any doubt.
Having the court order, they will now arrest these Bibanja as the trespassers, because the man has his court order. They will be taken to court, arrested, put in, and what. So the whole thing was confused. But now, so the president came in and said, look at those orders, because once that order violates Article 237, sub-article 8, then that order is invalid. So look at it. Is it evicting a Bibanja holder for any reason? Yes. Was there a constitutional, is this judgment which gave the order, was it a constitutional judgment interpreting this constitutional provision and therefore saying that a Bibanja holder can be evicted? No. The judge, the magistrate just decided. Then you say this is an invalid order. But not to conflict with the judiciary. You take it, give it to Attorney General, he applies to court to vacate the order.
The 1995 Constitution introduced fundamental reforms in land ownership, with Article 237 spelling out 4 tenure systems: Customary, Freehold, Mailo and Leasehold. Clause 8 of Article 237 further spelt out that, I quote, within 2 years after the first sitting of Parliament elected under this Constitution, Parliament shall enact a law to regulate the relationship between the lawful or bona fide occupants of land referred to in this clause and their registered owners of that land, and providing for the acquisition of registrable interest in the land by the occupant. I end quotes. This, however, became a combustible matter 2 years on, as was the plan, and still is 22 years later.
Because this was a mandate to the parliament, which was in existence 2 years after coming into force of this constitution, to pass a law, to give them. Why? I asked that question, and I'm referred to the struggles of the day between the Mengo people and whoever wanted to abolish Mailo. I understand they felt threatened and they fought it. That's why I'm told in 1998, I hadn't come back, that there was even a mourning at Mengo, that they put on back clothes to mourn.
In April 1998, President Museveni, while speaking at the closure of a 2-day meeting of MPs on the proposed land bill, remarked that Baganda do not own land, which statement, according to an article published by the Monitor newspaper, spawned widespread backlash. The statement and the law was interpreted as a covert government plan to allocate central Uganda land to other tribal groups. Later in May 1998, during the ceremony for installation of the then Kampala Mayor, Nassan Tege Sebagala, the then Prime Minister Apollon Sibambi was booed off the stage after attempting to address the matter in its proper context. The junior minister of local government, Kahinda Otafire, who had accompanied the chief guest, attempted to calm the situation by saying, I quote, "No Munyankole will steal Baganda land," end quote. During the just concluded high-voltage election campaigns, during which the NRM lost resoundingly in Buganda, land was a sticky subject. One senior government official intimated that the executive was particularly jolted by the sentiments propagated that there was a ploy to grab Baganda land and redistribute it to some ethnic group. The sentiments flew on the backdrop of gross human rights abuses of especially the opposition National Unity Platform supporters in Buganda. The NRM lost fair and square as a result.
I also realized why we lost votes as NRM in Uganda, because wherever I would go, I would find a crowd. And the moment I tell them their rights. Your rights are there in the Constitution. You know, because we use the word Bibanja, and the Constitution is in English. There is no legal or bona fide occupant. So nobody believes that they are there in the Constitution.
Exponents against Mailo land say besides fueling the cocktail of land wrangles, it is also not desirable towards investors and infrastructure projects, to which plans are abound to amend Article 26 of the Constitution that prohibits compulsory acquisition of property before prompt payment of fair and adequate compensation to its owners. The Buganda Kingdom Prime Minister, Charles Peter Mayiga, however, says that the exponents of the law are missing the bigger picture.
Politicians will want to find excuses as to why they didn't perform well here or there. You know, the true cause of any election result, if it's free and fair, is how service delivery has been effected. Let me tell you.
He said the prevailing problems have nothing to do with Mailo land or the land tenure system.
It has nothing to do with Mailo land and the tenure system. The fourth problem is with political interference. Even in the situations where the courts issue orders, then you get directives from the executive. Now, there must be a clear separation of duties, of roles. Now, when you get executive orders interfering with court orders, you're going to compound the land problems. The fifth problem has to do with the population explosion.
So, what will happen if the Mailo land tenure system is abolished? Will the powerful individuals in government or other sacred cows, mostly absentee landlords that have acquired large tracts of land through this tenure, lose their land? While there is need for land reforms to contain the tensions simmering from north to west to central, it must be done in consultation and preserve the peculiar culture and history of communities.